There it goes. Now it's recording. All right. Here we are at 100 for Trees with Kevin Silvey. We were chatting right before we started pushing record. It was getting too good. So I had to hurry up and push record. Kevin, do you want to introduce yourself and back up just a little bit? Tell them a little bit about what we were talking about.
Gosh, yes. So we talked a few weeks ago. I was in Florida getting
Mhm.
ready to run a 100 miler, and I was all excited. And I was staying in a little place called Dexter's Den. I was in the palm trees right near New Smyrna. I was able to walk on those beaches in the morning, and that was beautiful, and see some amazing, sunrise, and really got all excited. And I had eaten well, and
Yeah.
rested well. Going into this race, I thought everything was going to be perfect. So I was telling you that on the last several weeks, I've been on a whirlwind of new knowledge. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So here's where we go with Forgotten Florida. I'll try to be
Okay.
brief.
Okay.
At mile 50
Mhm.
during the Forgotten Florida, the rain had yet to subside. It was getting really out of hand. And the mud, depending on, your ability or your weight even, because
Mhm.
I do recall going into Forgotten Florida, I was in, kind of a peak physical condition and even a little fat, like because I
Mhm.
had tapered and maybe 5 pounds fat is my
Mhm.
opinion, which is irrelevant in this story, but it'll come out later as to why I'm telling you that. So I'm about 210 going into the 100 miler, but
Mhm.
at mile 50, my pacer, Paul Tilley, the milkman, he's famous. He doesn't want to be famous, but he's sort of famous in his circles.
Uh-huh.
In ultra running world, they're like, "That's the milkman." I'm like, "I know." So he's done some amazing stuff. A lot of other people also have. He's just one of those amazing people. But he was going
Mhm.
to pace me for my 100 miler starting at mile 50. And
Okay.
he said to me, he said, "I've been watching the radar," because I have not been watching the radar. I've been running 50 miles. I don't care about the radar. And he
Yeah.
says, "Dress." And by the way, I have chicken on my face. I don't know if you can
Yeah,
see
he
that.
was eating right before we hopped on here. He's still
Fried
eating.
chicken. Oh, yeah. I can eat. Okay. So he says at mile 50, he says, "You need to dress for Virginia. All hell's going to break loose." And I'm like,
Wow.
"What are you talking about?" And he said, "It's going to get cold." He said, "Put on your best cold gear." And I'm just like, "Are you serious?" I didn't really believe him. We're in Florida, but
Right.
it
And it's
got weird.
warm.
It
Hmm.
got weird and it got cold and the rain came in. And now there were people that survived this race. A lot of people did not finish this race. And the biggest problem was a place called Devil's Swamp for me. I
Yeah.
lost my shoes like 8 times in Devil's Swamp and had
Oh,
to turn
that's
around and
so
go
bad.
get them. I had
Yeah.
struggled with how to keep my shoes on, to be honest. And
Yeah.
the every time you stepped in a swampy area, it could be up to your knee, it could be up to your ankle, it could be up to your thigh. Like it was just an
That's a
insult.
very real thing, y'all. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, so you're in the swamp and you're if it's dry, it's treacherous. If it's wet, it's blinding. And so you're just really tense, overstressed. And I even look back at Coros, the app off of my watch that shows I was overstressed. Like it'll show you that your body's tense if you know how to read the data. But it was simply 17 hours of being tense, being too uptight, being stressed out. And when I got to mile 68, I was, I guess, borderline hypothermic. I was starting to shiver. My lips were blue. I was unable to keep this interior warm. I was freezing,
Yeah.
So once I became freezing, it really didn't matter. We were soaking wet. We had all the good gear on, but everything was wet. Like I was sweating because I was so covered, with good gear, but then I was freezing because we were just being rained on and everything leaks eventually. And honestly,
Hmm.
I was just miserable. But at mile 68, I have Mike in front of me who brings me some chicken and milk, which I wanted. We're
Hmm.
under an awning, which is a perfect scenario. I mean, a bridge like a overpass. We're in an underpass. So there's an overpass. So we had safety. But I go up to get my chicken and milk, and I see Mike, and then I see Paul, the milkman, and Paul, the milkman, says, "You okay, bro?" And I was just like, "What's he saying?" And it was like everything got really slow all of a sudden. And so the next thing I knew, I was in a bag chair I've never been in a bag
Oh,
chair during a race, to be honest. I never
mhm.
have. I know that we call it the chair of death, like don't sit down. Well, when I
Right.
woke up, it was Mike and Paul and lady that happened to be a nurse and a guy that happened to be a nurse. They're both nurses, and
Yeah.
they're both saying you're done. And I'm like, and they're like, I have plenty of time. I can recover. I can get warm. And they're like, yeah, you can get warm, but you're not going back out on the course. Like, nah, that could have happened in the swamp. You just fainted. And so I
Mhm.
passed out, just from complete exhaustion, I guess, more than anything. But it was that coming to a quick stop and
Yeah.
then cold. And I had taken a swig of that cold milk that came out of
Milk.
the cooler, and that
Hmm.
hit me even colder. Next thing I know, I'm on the floor. And by the way, the guy was real cool. He was like, he had a blood pressure cuff on me, like he pulled out his gear and he held my
Nice.
pulse. And he literally just said, I'm gonna give him 3 minutes. Y'all leave him alone, like let him be there. And so he let me lay there and let me wake up normally. And
Hmm.
then they put me in a chair. And then, of course, they're like, "Do you know where you're at?" And I'm like, shit, I do. Like, I know where I'm at, and I'm sitting in a freaking bag chair. So I was pretty upset, which is stupid, by the way. So I'll skip right to the easy part and say, Paul was like, dude, this weather sucks so bad. It took
Hmm.
us forever to go those 18 miles. This race sucks. I mean, dude, I was glad it was over, and he was like, I felt bad for you. And it was time, so DNF'd at the 100 miler. So stupid baby boy, I'm over there pouting like a dang, wounded rat, like, I don't know, just felt pretty pathetic. I go,
Mm.
I go back to Dexter's Den. So
Uh-huh.
my,
The
my
next week.
yeah, so my dear friend Rosie,
Hmm.
who is trying to, not trying, but she is completing 100 milers. And so she
Hmm.
came and ran our race at Froggy Mountain. I'm the race director at Froggy Mountain. She ran the
Okay.
100. She won the 100 at Froggy Mountain. And then ever since then, there were several races on her calendar that I've paced her or crewed her because honestly, I'm blown away by what she's doing. She's running 100 hundreds.
Yeah.
She's running number 73 in a couple of weeks. But
Hmm.
she sent me a message and said, and she had finished Forgotten Florida, by the way. She had
Okay.
completely smoked that course. And, I'm like, wow, she's done, I think that was number 69 or 68 for her at that time.
Hmm.
And so keep in mind, she's done several since then. This woman
Yeah.
does like 20 milers per year.
Wow.
So it's just
Yeah.
incredible. So she has a great
Yeah.
story. She has a great
Right.
reason. I'm going to try to move past Forgotten Florida onto what she told me. She said, get back on the horse,
Uh-huh.
and she sent me an ultra sign up, and it was in Florida, and it was called the Space Pirate 100. It was from Space Coast to Treasure Coast, I think they would called it like that. So it was, Canaveral to Treasure Island. Maybe it's 100
Okay.
miles on the
Mhm.
beach road the whole way.
Yep. Yep.
So I destroyed my feet like at mile. I went ahead
You're
and
you're on
signed up for the
pavement the
race.
whole time, right?
Yeah, so like I'm
Those are
okay.
those are tough.
Yeah, so I'm thinking I'm totally trained for 100. It's time to go do it. Last week I ran 68.
Mhm.
If they hadn't pulled me, I probably would have maybe eaten some food, gotten warm, and then gotten back on the course.
Mhm.
But now I want that buckle now. Like I want
Yeah.
the freaking buckle. So
Yeah.
I go run it at mile 44. Our crew chief Brandon, who is amazing, he was a happens to be a nurse as well. By the way, for people that choose crew chiefs and
Mhm.
help at a race, pick nurses. They're really good at their job. And so Brandon, who's a CRNA,
Uh-huh.
he I called him privately. We were running together, several of us in the 100 miler. I called him privately and I said, I want you to pull over. I need help, like by myself. And he's like, okay. Like, what's wrong? Is it private? And I'm like, I just don't want the other people to know that I'm hurt. And
Mhm.
so I thought that was a pretty smooth move, to be honest.
Mhm.
But the balls of my feet had been on that pavement for 44 miles in the heat in
Yeah.
Florida, and it was like 85 degrees.
Yeah.
So I'm a mountain boy, and I mean,
Uh-huh.
I don't know what to say besides my feet were doomed. And I thought, well, it's nighttime. It's time to speed up, and that way we can get this buckle. And the balls of my feet, both of them were gone. Like they had just flapped off. And so he pushed them back on, squeezed all the juice out of my feet.
Wow.
He cleaned me, he taped me, he glued me and retaped me and taped my in between my toes. He said a couple of very specific things. He was like, "Don't waste my time. but if I fix you, are you going to go get that buckle? And he said, don't be a, and he said, don't be a something. And it was pretty
Mhm,
profound, but it was like, don't be a fairy, don't be a wimp, you
mhm,
know?
mhm,
And so he said that, and I'll never forget him looking at me like that. But I was like, dude, I'm going to get that buckle. So
yeah.
he taped up my feet, and I told no one, and I
Mhm,
ran 55 more miles on messed up feet. I was so proud of myself. I got the buckle. The
mhm,
next morning, Adam and Rosie and I were all together, and Adam didn't want to go. That's fine, but
mhm,
Rosie and I walked on the beach. And she was like, "Why are your feet all taped up?" And I was like, "Oh," and she's like, "Are you kidding me?" And so I had not told anyone.
mhm,
And but when I got taped, they were 15 minutes ahead of me, so I had to catch them and
mhm.
then finish the race with them. And Adam and Rosie and I finished literally a few minutes apart. But
Nice.
so to get that buckle was not the one I went down there for, but it was the one that I deserved, I suppose, at some point. But so
That's a
now
tough
I've
race.
learned a lot about fainting, being pulled from a course
Mhm,
when you really want to keep going, and then
yeah.
hey, when you want to tell everybody I'm fine, I'm going to ignore pain and then
Mhm,
keep going. So all of a sudden, I learned a lot about me, what that pain threshold is, where the pain cave is, how deep it goes. It's a rabbit hole, and you
yeah.
got to know. The truth is, and I honestly, I thought about women. To be frank, I thought, well, they have babies. I mean, they must be able to turn it off, like somehow, or they must be able to somehow program their brain to endure it and to
Mhm.
know that it's going to be a number. Like I gave my pain a number. I was like, it's a
Yeah.
7. You know,
Okay.
it's like, it's a 7. I think
Yeah.
I could probably handle a 7. I'm going to just swallow the pill that running on painful feet is a 7. And
Mm.
then what'll happen? So it took several weeks to get my feet back. Let's move past that. And then
Wow.
you're going to be like, well, what next crazy can happen? Do you know that this is just getting good? Like, wow.
Hmm.
So I had committed because I was like, look, I live on the road. I have my
Yeah.
own Wi-Fi. Like the
Uh-huh.
funny thing is I just bought, this is so fun. I just bought this van, and it's
Okay.
sort of hard to understand, but I've got this
Looks
all-wheel
cool.
drive van now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's retro, and
Uh-huh.
it's gutted, and it's ready for the road. But so
There you
it'll be
go.
another part of the adventure thing. But so let me explain after Forgotten Florida. Then
Mhm.
we had Space Pirates, and now I'm a space pirate. By the way, I will tell you about pain. When I
Uh-huh.
was finishing Space Pirate, the last 2 miles, and I
Mhm.
didn't care that it was noon in Florida, going
Right.
towards Treasure Island Park or whatever it's called. I didn't
Yeah.
care that there were tourists everywhere and that
Yeah.
there were people looking at me like he's talking to himself. I was talking
Hmm.
to myself, and you know what I was
Yeah.
saying? I was
Yeah.
saying, I am a space pirate. I am a space pirate. I'm a space pirate. And of course, I'm sure anyone listening was like, he's lost his mind.
Yeah.
But for those last 2 miles, my feet hurt so bad. And it was hot again. We had
Hmm.
run through the night on those stupid feet. And then
Right.
now I'm like, I can't wait for this to be over. So I
Yes.
just couldn't handle it anymore. So I started
Yeah.
singing to myself.
You go somewhere else in
But
your
it worked.
head.
I had to
Yeah.
go away. I had to become a space pirate.
Yeah.
So I got that, and then I was planning to crew Rosie for several races because some of them I was already going. Some of the other people wanted me to crew them as well. I mean, we sort of travel like a bunch of gypsies in a
Right.
community, and
That's
ultra
cool.
runners are just some wild people that'll go
Yeah.
anywhere and they'll sleep on anything or in anything.
Yeah.
And
Just give us
we
a reason.
give us a shovel and we can safely dispose of our waste and 160 yards away from a water source. And ultra runner people are just crazy. So
Hmm.
anyway, here's the deal. I over the next period of time had all these plans. So I was going to run the Georgia Death Race. I was going to sing the national anthem at the Georgia Death Race on March the 30th. Um,
Okay.
I was still at about 210 pounds. You're thinking, why do you keep telling me how much you weigh? Well, there's a reason. So, this is just catching up with Kevin over the last several weeks. We're not even into philosophical debates or whatever at this point. We're just like, guess what happened to me, right? All right. So, I'm going to run Georgia Death Race. And immediately after that, Rosie's like, "Well, I have a race in Georgia. It's called the Bootlegger." And I'm like, "Well, I can just leave Georgia Death Race and go straight to Bootlegger. I'll be in Georgia." And she's like, "You supported me on all these races. I'm going to come support you." And I'm like,
Oh,
"That's great."
cool.
So I'm
Yeah.
like, what does that mean even? I didn't know what it meant at the time, but it turns out I needed support. So
Hmm.
I get ready for the Georgia Death Race March the 30th. I'm so excited. I've already got a spike from there from last year. I'm feeling pretty confident. I sang the national anthem there the year before. I did pretty well on it. This year I'm practiced up. I got my vocal tone right. My nerves are not shot. I'm feeling good. Spend a lot of time in the woods. I got a buckle. I'm feeling really, really good. I'm physically fit. I can
Yeah.
sing. I have like all my range. Like the national anthem has 17 semitones. If you were a
Oh.
vocal coach, you would say, "Kevin, you hit all 17 semitones." I would say, "I know." So I was very happy to be able to do that. I mean, if your
Mhm.
nerves are shot, if you have a touch of stage fright, you may not be able to hit those 17 or anywhere near it. But so I'm not tooting my horn, but if you do need me to sing the national anthem, I only charge a ton of money. It's well worth it. Anyhow, just kidding. It's not that much. Anyway,
It's a tough one to sing. We have one of the toughest national anthems out of like the whole world.
absolutely, absolutely. So
Hmm.
I'm going to go to the Georgia Death Race. I'm going to sing the national anthem, and I'm going to hit the ball out of the park. And I'm going to take off now because after I sing, everyone else leaves, right? And then they take off, and I'm like, wow, So I have to start dead last at the Georgia Death Race when I sing, which is fine. So I sort of take that moment to shuffle off, and now I got to pass all these people because I know how to run the race, and that is you're going to pass about 175 people early if you were in the back because that's how many people that are going to DNF. Out of
Okay.
300 and some, 40% of them DNF.
Okay.
You're going to have 175, 200 people, depending on how many people show up. So
That's a lot.
if you really want to get there in the race, you need to get ahead of the conga lines. The first few miles, you need to bust it. So I did a 9.5, and then I did a 9.5, and then I did
Wow.
like an 11, and I
Yeah.
was really moving, and I knew I had passed all the back of the packers, in my
Yeah.
opinion, the people that weren't going to make it. And now I was passing mid packers to the point that I was up there with what I believed were the people that would actually succeed.
Yeah.
So I had to work hard to get there. And then I go to mile 7, not 74, mile 7, and I get to the aid station, and my friend Pam, who looks at me and she's like, "Do you want to sit in the front seat of my car?" And I'm looking at her like, "What for?" Like,
Mhm.
why? I said, "Is it obvious?" And she said, "You look like you don't feel well." And I said, "I kind of don't, but I don't know why." She said, "Your
Mhm.
lips are blue. That's one thing." And I was like, "Are you sure?" And she said, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Okay, my lips are blue." And I'm like, "I am cold." And she's like, "Nobody's cold, Kevin. Like, it's not cold." And
Yeah.
I'm like, she said, "Go sit in my car, get warm, and I'll check on you." So she sat me in the front seat of the car. And honestly, I was like, okay, I'm sort of in trouble. I just don't know what's wrong.
Yeah.
So I call Rosie and I said,
Mhm.
"You were going to meet me at mile 21." I said, "I don't know if I can get to mile 21." And she's like, "What? I mean, you just
Yeah.
sang the most beautiful anthem. You seem real happy. Like, what's going on?" I was like, "I don't know. I have no idea." So I was like, I am deathly ill, in my opinion, all of a sudden. And you're like, "Really?" Like, yep. So
Wow.
I told her, I said, "I will walk to Mulkey, which is mile 13. If you'll go there instead." I said, "I'll try to get there." I said,
Mhm.
"But don't worry about it if I'm late. Like I'll be there eventually." And she said,
Mhm.
"Okay, I'll drive to Mulkey." And I said, "Perfect." So then I ate 3 gels to try to put some food in my stomach. I had food that I couldn't eat that morning. Like I did not eat. I just did like I felt like I was going to vomit if I ate. So I ate 3 gels, and then I fell asleep in the front seat of that car. Like I could not stay awake. So the nurse knocked on the door, opens the door, and she says, "You can stay in that car. You're not going anywhere." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Here we go
Oh
again.
no.
What's going on?" So what had happened was this. Now this is the horrible, horrible stuff. Now, by the way, for people that say I've heard of this or I've had this before,
Hmm.
you may think you've had it and you
Hmm.
may have had something similar. But if you
Hmm.
get what I got, you're gonna
Hmm.
be in big you're gonna be in big trouble. So
Okay.
norovirus. It was
Oh
it was
my
breaking
gosh.
out on the AT. there are signs on the privies on the AT from the CDC, and they're telling you that the norovirus has been unleashed somehow. So I was at the Georgia Death Race with probably 500 other people, picking up my spike, picking up
Hmm.
my bib for the race, saying
And you
hello,
felt
taking
fine?
pictures. I mean, totally fine. And then I sang the
Yeah.
death race, the national anthem the next morning, felt fine. 7 miles
Right.
into the race, I'm sick. And then it's like calling Rosie saying, just go, pick me up somewhere else and get me out of here. So
Yeah.
then it became, let me tell you what it became. Okay, 3 weeks. Now, if your listeners are like, I don't like hearing about diarrhea or vomiting, they're just going to hate me
They
for
need
the
to
next
tune
few
out.
minutes.
Right.
Just turn it
Right.
down. But
Yeah.
let me explain. I'm talking about what happens. And this is the part where people will say, oh, I had norovirus. You may
Hmm.
have had a touch of it or a stomach bug or something similar. But I
Yeah.
think if you actually get the real, what I would call full blown norovirus, what is happening is your brain eventually is in a cycle, a pendulum, a to and fro, a yin and yang, heart beats, blinks, lungs in and out. Like everything is cyclical. Everything is
Hmm.
pendulum like. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
cause and effect system. There's ebbs and flows. There's like waves on the ocean inside of your body. You have a central nervous system. There's all kind of stuff going on. But
Yeah.
this norovirus helped me with a new chapter in my book because it programs your brain. This virus goes into your head and it tells your body that everything you eat is salmonella.
No way.
Everything. Do you hear me? So
Are you
what have
serious?
I, people will say,
Wait,
well,
wait,
you
wait.
should
That's
eat
like strictly
bread.
psychological.
Yes,
It's
bread,
wow.
rice, apples, toast. They say that the bland stuff.
Hmm.
I have vomited grape popsicles. I have vomited chocolate ice cream. I have vomited grits. I have vomited applesauce. I have vomited saltine crackers. I have vomited anything mild that you can think of. A piece
Yeah.
of toast has vomited. Now,
Yeah.
it will go one or two ways, depending on how inflamed you are. And
Hmm.
if you're radically inflamed, because this norovirus causes like a bunch of pimples in your GI, and then they
Hmm.
all pop, and then it's out of your body, but then you have
Uh-huh.
all that damage. And then the
Wow.
problem is because your brain thinks that everything
Yeah.
is poison. Here's what actually happens. This is the scary part.
This is
So,
jacked up, Kevin.
this is called dying.
Oh my God. Did you?
No, I
Did you have
didn't
a near
die.
death experience?
Well, I mean, pretty close. So let me
Are we
explain.
about to get into that?
Well, I mean, so here's the thing. Look, I don't know if you can
Okay.
tell, but I mean, like, look at me now. I
Yeah.
weigh 189 pounds.
Wow.
So
I was looking at your arms. I
everything,
was like, your arms look different. I noticed
like,
that.
not a
Yeah.
drop of fat on my entire body. Like, I have
Yeah.
abs, and chiseled abs for that matter. Only because you don't have any fat. You lose all of it. Like not only your extra fat, but your visceral fat, the vitals even, you
Yeah.
start to waste. And so, you
Yeah.
eventually you're losing your own body. I mean, you're like muscle breakdown and stuff eventually.
Yeah.
But so that program tells your brain everything is salmonella. So
Mhm.
it'll either evacuate it one way or the other, but it doesn't go into your stomach. So if you ate, let's say you finally get to the point where you're getting the food to go in your system and you're not vomiting,
Mhm.
meaning that you're doing the right things. Now, by the way, for people that are not proponents of marijuana, let me make clear to you marijuana reduces inflammation in your GI. So
Mm.
that's why we call it Granny's chemo weed when we talk
Mhm.
about this,
Mm.
meaning if Granny can't eat, she's going to
Mhm.
pass away. If
Right.
we can, the nausea is so bad that if
Yeah.
she can smoke some weed or take a gummy, if you're against
Mhm.
smoking anything, but
Mhm.
take a gummy, the THC, the CBD combined together reduces inflammation. This is not about advocacy for weed. It's just a
Right. Right.
happenstance because my daughter is a doctor and she's in
Mhm.
South Carolina and she says, I
Mhm.
wish I could just tell you, Dad, just take some gummies and then eat because you'll have reduced inflammation and
Mhm.
maybe you can get this nutrient balance because you're losing everything you're eating. We just need to
Wow.
keep some. Like if you're eating
Yeah.
5,000 calories and vomiting
Yeah.
6,000, we've got a problem. Or if it's going out the other way. So if it's not coming up, here's
Mhm.
what's happening. It doesn't go to your stomach. it avoids your stomach because it doesn't want you to ingest the salmonella poison. So what it
Mm.
does is it turns it straight into your intestine,
Wow.
and it mixes it with all of your liquids.
Uh,
you won't be going to pee. You
yeah.
will be sitting to pee because everything's coming out your rear end and it's all liquid,
Oh my God.
all of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
so
yeah.
you could
Yeah.
eat two double
Hmm.
cheeseburgers, an
Hmm.
entire pizza, okay,
Oh my God.
and a basket of
French
sweet potato
fries.
fries,
Uh-huh.
and then say, guys, look at the people at the table with you and say, I'm starving. And they all look at you like you're crazy. But you know
Yeah.
why? Because it never went in your stomach.
Wow. Yes,
That's
and that's why you're not getting
very,
any nutrition either. Yeah.
that's why you're scared to
Yeah.
death. Because every
Yeah.
day you weigh a pound or two less. And every day you go to the toilet and hear this insane sound. And you're like,
Mhm.
what just happened? So
Yeah.
what happens is eventually people die. And eventually people die from diarrhea. If you investigate it, the number one cause of death is diarrhea, period,
Hmm.
sadly, but that's what kills people. So the virus is pretty deadly if you ask the right people. Some people will say, oh, I had a stomach bug and it was really bad. And I'll say, well, how long did it last? And they'll say, oh, just a day or two. And I'm like, that's not what happened to you. It's the same thing that, like, I'm talking about that, but for 3 weeks. Now, eventually I got to the point where I lost so much weight, and the
Yeah.
conversations with my daughter are like, you are doing all the right things. You're an ultra runner. You're super fit. You're eating super healthy.
Yeah.
You're doing body armor, electrolyte water all day long.
Well, did you do the
You're eating
gummies?
and
Did
eating
you
and eating.
do the THC? Did you do any of
Oh
that?
yeah, like constantly, like literally.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
yes, the inflammation was reduced, and yes, I
Mhm.
could eventually keep food down. The problem is, the food wasn't going into my stomach.
Oh,
Like
I
just
see.
because
Right. 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 Right.
so it's
Back to
like
that.
just because you're
Yeah.
not vomiting, you're still
Right.
it's still going out, and then I'm
Yeah.
still losing weight. So once I got
Yeah.
to like 190, she's like, I hate to tell you this, she said, but I want you to go to a doctor like local, and I
Hmm.
want you to talk to him because I don't understand why this is happening. She said it could be that it's turning into like giardia, and it
Hmm.
could be that it's a
Hmm.
parasite that's in your liver. Like if it's a parasite stuck in your liver,
Hmm.
we could have a problem there. She said, so I don't know. She said modern medicine says, weed in Colorado or Virginia. She said, you live in Virginia. Everyone else is sending people home and telling them, do not get dehydrated. Like, don't
Hmm.
get dehydrated. And
Hmm.
most people believe it will run its course. It is very unusual for a person to get stuck into that, um, like a twitch, a nervous twitch that won't go away,
Hmm.
a problem like a Tourette's. See,
Hmm.
this virus affects your central nervous system and your brain in such a way that, like I said, it is like you're eating poison. You don't know it, but
Hmm.
everything you eat, it's your program now says, oh, that's poison. So that's why you have the salmonella episodes, as
Hmm.
in, if you describe it, it would be like everyone on the cruise ship had salmonella poisoning.
Right.
That's kind of the virus thing. And there is a person who was familiar who said that's like that cruise ship thing, and I was like, yeah, it
Hmm.
is.
Yeah.
So now, by the way, people can say, why don't you go to the doctor? Why didn't you go to the hospital? I was on the phone with a doctor on a regular, and she
Yeah.
loves
Right.
me more than anybody.
Right.
So we're good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, there was also a celebrity that was on TikTok or something that had 250,000 likes on this page where I saw, because I was searching. See, if you
Hmm.
got COVID, there's a lot of money to be made on COVID, and there's plexiglass, and there's masks, and there's all
Hmm.
this products. With
Hmm.
norovirus, they're like, don't die, don't
Uh,
die. But they
wow.
don't do anything at the hospital. As a matter of fact, they send you
Hmm.
home. So there's a
Mm.
lady laying on her floor in the picture, on her pillow in her bathroom by her toilet, saying, I went to the hospital. She even had more photos, and they showed her getting fluids in the hospital. They've sent me home. She said, I've had babies come out of my vagina
Mhm.
and I've had surgery, and nothing is worse than norovirus.
Ooh.
And I was like, wow, so I'm not the only
Uh,
one. So I felt
yeah.
like a weenie whining and crying. But honestly, about 30 pounds into this thing, I was like,
Yeah.
maybe
Uh-huh.
I'm dying. Maybe there's something to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So, so here's the answer.
Uh-huh.
We finally found the answer. So this is bizarre, but just like local honey actually does help people with their allergies. They just don't want to believe it. And just
Uh-huh.
like anti venom is made from venom, which is sort of
Uh-huh.
weird. But
Uh-huh.
people don't, I think we just don't understand science, or we don't understand the way things
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
And so we're sort of confused about things, even when we have an answer in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
So if you said it this way, we could say it this way. Everyone knows that. I could get you to, I believe, persuasively get you to agree with this. I bet you'll go, yeah, yeah, you're right. And even my daughter did. Okay, so when I said something like, my friends keep telling me to take Imodium, and she's like, well, that's just a Band-Aid because you have a virus. Your body is not going to say, hey, thanks for the Imodium, no more virus.
Mm-hmm.
Imodium's not a cure for a virus. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody knows it. It's a Band-Aid maybe. And
Mm-hmm.
yet you may say, well, I think it might be effective in treating your symptoms. I know that. But we have norovirus. So what do we really want? We want my body to kick its ass. We want it
Mm-hmm.
to no longer be succumbing to this. You want to be that immune system that wins. The
Mm-hmm.
problem is we were losing, so now what? We got to have some kind of interaction. So it's so strange. But if salmonella is poison,
Mm-hmm.
what do? You're going to say, what? Hit it with more poison. Like, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to give me a lot of poison. And you're going to say, well, that sounds crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it refuses to accept poison, maybe
Mm-hmm.
if we give it a hell of a dose of poison, maybe
Mm-hmm.
it will be so confused that it will just start to retro back to the way it was intended. Like, if the guy even told me this, like if they shock a man with arrhythmia and it
Mm-hmm.
puts him back into balance, that
Mm-hmm.
shock, who
Mm-hmm.
knows why, but it kind of works, right? So
Yeah.
we got to shock your system when you eat something. And I'm like, well, how are we going to do that? And he said, well, we're going to use a Band-Aid. And he said, Pepto Bismol. Bismol is bismuth. Bismuth is poisonous. Okay. It
Mm-hmm.
is amazing. If you'll Google bismuth crystals, you'll be so
Mm-hmm.
entertained. And it's amazing to look at what that chemical can produce when it comes to crystals.
Yeah.
It's an element and it's naturally occurring, but it's poisonous.
Mm-hmm.
So our body is so amazing that we know how poisonous bismuth is.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, like with food contamination and salmonella, it's sort of like we're all at risk of, that. Like if you shared
Yeah.
a porta potty with somebody or a privy, there's a good chance you could actually,
Yeah.
unfortunately, get that from them, contagious wise, not like airborne, not like COVID, but not an airborne strain, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so I may sound like I'm all over the map about bismuth, but bismuth is bismol and it's
Uh-huh.
poison. Now,
Mm-hmm.
what's cool about our amazing bodies is that our brain knows that it's poison, and so it refuses to absorb bismuth. So it
Mm.
won't absorb bismuth. And you
Yeah.
remember I said my stomach was dealing with no food going into it, so I have to
Yeah.
absorb nutrients, which I can't do. So
Right.
all this seems a little crazy. It's like, are we punching a hole in the boat? Well, maybe to see if it'll start to sink. And you may
Yeah.
think, are we sabotaging you? Well, here's what he said. Everybody knows Pepto Bismol is just a Band-Aid. So if you had an ulcer and you
Mm-hmm.
took some Pepto Bismol and you said, I feel better, I would say, yeah, but hon, you still got an ulcer. You probably need to tend to that. Like in a few hours, I bet you're going to want that another sip of that Pepto Bismol, or you're going to want to go see your doctor finally because you've
Mm-hmm.
been complaining about that ulcer for 3 weeks or whatever. So
Yeah.
Pepto Bismol is not going to fix anything. And
Yeah.
we know it. It's just a band aid. But
Mm-hmm.
here's what he said was so cool. He said, but we're going to put a band aid on you every 30 minutes and
Mm.
we're not going to stop. And he said, also, we're going to go ultra. And I'm like, ultra? That's cool because I
Yeah.
like ultra marathons. What are you talking about? And he said, so they have regular Pepto and you're not supposed to ingest one bottle in 24 hours.
Uh-huh.
He said the ultra is a double dose, so
Oh wow.
you shouldn't drink two of the, so two of those would, I mean, one of those it'd be like two bottles. So it's like 2 days worth in one bottle, right?
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
he said you're gonna drink it every 30 minutes until your tongue turns black, and
Ew.
you're not gonna stop until you have a normal bowel movement. And he
Okay.
said it could take a couple of weeks. And he said,
Wow.
but you'll see improvement right away. And he said, not to mention when your stomach's hurting because you're finally getting food back in your stomach and it's having to learn how to digest again because it's
Right.
probably had about 3 weeks of nothing. He said, right now, big meals are not even going in your stomach. He said, you don't get full, do you? I was like, nope. And he
Yeah.
said, Pepto Bismol Ultra right there. Shameless plug. This is about, I think this is the 15th bottle that I've been drinking to
Wow.
save my life. And I
Yeah.
finally stopped losing weight.
Is it working?
It is.
Yeah.
And
All
I'm
right.
finally not nauseous as hell every single morning. I'm finally
Okay.
drinking coffee again. And
Wow.
I've even drank a couple of beers, which is kind of
Uh-huh.
nice. But I had not had a beer or coffee for 3 weeks before the Pepto, and I
Yeah.
had rapidly lost 30 pounds in
Yeah.
3 weeks. So that part was, I don't mind saying, that's kind of depressing. Like
Yeah.
when you're, and what was really depressing is to have friends watching me because I was finally like, hey, I finally have my appetite back. And then I could
Mhm.
wolf down food. And they
Uh-huh.
were all in shock.
Yeah.
And I was a little bit worried too, because I was like, literally, I ate monstrous tons of food,
Yeah.
entire pizzas and a couple of hamburgers, and then go to bed and with a grumbling, hungry stomach.
Wow.
And like, what is wrong with me? So
Yeah.
he said that this will right itself. It will be okay. And you may say, well, when do you quit the Pepto? Well, when I run out for now, but for now I had a few extra bottles and I'm
Mhm.
sort of afraid to stop. Now, we'll double check with my daughter. And
Yeah.
of course, when I told this to like a good friend of mine, Keith, and if he listens to the thing, his last name is Moses, but he's a firefighter in Atlanta, so he sees a lot of action, sees a lot of
Mhm.
problems. He's the one who
Okay.
told me that the number one killer in the world is diarrhea. Like
Wow.
regardless of how it started, if it was
Yeah.
chemotherapy or nausea or a stroke, even he said a lot of
Mhm.
people they just develop, and foodborne illnesses are popular in the world, but one of the number one killers in the world, he said, is diarrhea.
Wow.
Glad to know. And now I know how that can kill you. And
Mhm.
I'm just
Yeah.
really glad to be alive. And then I'm glad to say that I got this um, awakening, because if you do wake up every single day
Yeah.
knowing that the majority of your day is spent trying to figure out how to eat or how to get food to stay
Yeah.
inside of you. It's pretty frustrating. I would say depressing, to be honest. I did
Mhm.
have a lot of help from some really good friends and a lot of attention
Mhm.
and people checking on me. And so I've really had, a sweet time in that regard.
Yeah.
People that I didn't know cared, like saying, hey, we're really rooting for you and we're so glad to see you and things like that. But the word had sort of gotten around, and there for a few days, probably before I went to the doctor for sure,
Mhm.
like I just wasn't getting out of bed. I was just in so much, I was in so much, I didn't have any nutrition.
Yeah.
I was starting to get big kneecaps and big
Yeah.
elbows, and I was looking at my body like, okay, this is going
Yeah.
way too far.
Wasting away. Right.
Yeah, and I started to think, okay, once you get that far, so the better thing is to for the people that have been hanging on, if they're still listening and they're not screaming and throwing stuff at the screen.
Uh-huh.
The doctor also told me, he said, I want you to leave here and go to the hospital, and everyone
Mhm.
needs to know this. This is a PSA, public service
Mhm.
announcement.
Mhm.
You can go to your hospital. You can walk up to the counter and say, I would like to visit the lab to get some lab work done.
Mhm.
And when they say, what doctor has ordered it, you can say, it's me. I'm ordering it for myself. You can put Dr. Sylvie on there if you want to. And
Mhm.
they did. They wrote on there, ordered by Dr. Sylvie. And I
Mhm.
put my birthday, not even my social, just my birthday and my
Mhm.
name. And I went to the lab and I got a CBC.
Mhm.
I asked for a uh, CBC
Mhm.
with what they call is distinguished marks. Not
Mhm.
like I did a great job on my test,
Mhm.
but as
Right.
in they
Right.
separate it out, right? So you can see
Mhm.
all of the levels. There's
Mhm.
some even in more in-depth labs, but it just depends on your hospital. But
Mhm.
38 bucks.
Mhm.
They'll give you the results in 2 hours for me.
Mhm.
But he said this. He said, this is my opinion, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn when he said this, but I am telling you what he told me. He
Mhm.
said, I can tell by looking at you and your skin
Mhm.
and your age and
Mhm.
your weight and the way you look. He said, if I just had to, give an idea, he said, I think you're an extremely healthy person,
Mhm.
but you happen to be very sick. And
Mhm. Mhm.
so I was like, he said, so to go get a blood test is a small price to pay. to
Yeah.
make sure we're not missing something. And he said,
Yeah.
so when you get those great results, he said, send them to your daughter so she can quit worrying about you. He said,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what's going on. And he said, it's hard to believe. He said, but a lot of this is in your head.
Mm.
And he said, it's nothing you can do about it. He said, once you're in that cycle, that's the only thing that'll stop it. He said, it's
Wow.
not a band aid. It's a
Yeah.
band aid you're going to reapply every 30 minutes until
Yeah.
you're healed. He said, so it seems weird. He said, but you're going to give your body so much bismuth. Like
Mm-hmm.
imagine now you're eating food with bismuth.
Yeah.
And so it's way worse than salmonella. So your
Mm-hmm.
body has to look at it and examine it and allow it to go into the stomach. And then it says,
Mm-hmm.
we're not going to absorb that, but we'll absorb that hot dog. And it's sort of
Mm-hmm.
a, I don't know, I guess it confuses
Kind
your
of
gut.
reset almost. Yeah.
It's a reboot. And so I
Mm-hmm.
got a reboot. And now I can probably like have a great physique and, be healthy as can be and run faster. I'm lighter weight. I am honestly having to get my digestive order
Mm-hmm.
back. Like
Yeah.
I'm finally wanting my old self. Like I went and got a fried chicken today. Yay,
Yeah.
the whole thing, and some
That part's
watermelon.
probably pretty fun.
I
Well,
had
hey.
chocolate milk, watermelon, and fried chicken.
Oh, that's nice. That's
But
nice.
I'm
Hey,
alive.
you got to be, man. You got to be. I can't believe all this, man. This is crazy. Well, I want to hear. We got about 20 minutes left, and I want to hear about these philosophical. 20 minutes isn't near enough, but we're gonna have to do it. What are these? What is this you were talking about earlier when you're like, wow, I've really just been awakened to some things.
Well, I guess and I try hard not to get emotional. You try to make me cry. I
It's
can sense
okay.
it.
It's okay. It's okay.
but no, I mean, if you really think, you just meals away.
Yeah.
We take meals for granted. Do you know how
Yeah.
many people go, well, I'm not hungry? I mean, just, I'm not hungry right now because they have so much and they have so much plenty. Imagine never being able to get your food to give you any value. Like, I can't even imagine that. That's like a horror story, like, oh, wow, I can eat a hamburger and then I'm going to get nothing out of it. So it was a weird conversation with the daughter because she was like, I know you gave up ice cream and you're super healthy and all that. She said, but you
Yeah.
need calories right now.
You need something.
Anything that'll give you extra calories because we're in a battle now to get you to
Mhm.
keep calories. So anything you can keep. And I think she actually believed, like everybody else, stay hydrated, it'll run its course and all that. So, I
Mhm.
mean, honestly, my own demise, I would say, because I've been this poster child for be
Health.
healthy, healthy,
And
healthy.
yeah, and even like pushing to an extreme, and your metabolism was revved up too. So
Yeah.
everything was processing at a really clean, efficient way. And to go the other extreme so quickly, you demise just as quickly too.
hmm Yeah, I mean, you can go from being able to run 100 miles to being able to not being able to get out of bed.
Wow.
And when I say not being able to get out of bed, well, you get out of bed to go to the toilet. And as a man, like I'm just if anybody's still listening, I guess they're in the weeds with us now. But I mean, you can't even stand up and pee.
Yeah.
You're like,
Wow.
why not? Why not? Because you're gonna squirt your pants
Yeah.
for 3 weeks.
Oh my God.
So here's the fun part. I tried hard to act normal and wash myself really well and perform and go places and do things and act completely normal. And
Hmm.
yet, because I kept thinking, tomorrow I'm going to feel better. Tomorrow I'm going to feel better. Tomorrow I'm going to feel better. But
Yeah.
that whole deep thinking thing is just, you know, look, we're sitting here in a position where we don't even think about the fact that we have snacks laying around and we have food laying around and that we have an abundance and we have plenty and but hunger is something I never even I would have never thought that I could have literally said to you, hey guys, I'm starving, and you would have looked at me and said, come on, you're full of crap, you ate a lot of food yesterday, a person can go without food for so many days, and I'm going to be like, stop it, stop it.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
have been, and I'm telling you, it'll mess with your brain. Like if
Hmm.
you think it won't drive you crazy, like go without
Yeah.
eating for about 2 or 3 weeks and tell me that won't make you a little bit frustrated, like
So
just a little bit.
this is all going on in your head, and you're like, I mean, so if you're not getting nutrition, your brain's not getting nutrition either. And tell me about like what was that like? Because you can go in an ultra and you have to go to a place mentally, and you
Mm-hmm.
were even talking about that, it's kind of comical with the space pirate, but this is different. You had in the ultra, we make a choice. We're pretty sure we know that moment's coming. This is like something was like, poof, here you go, Kevin, deal with it. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what this is. Like what it to go from strength, capability, choosing to I don't know what this is. I am kind of at the mercy of it. What's that like in your head? What's going on in your head? And were you like alone sometimes? Did you have times when you were just alone and so you're alone with your thoughts?
Oh yeah, because there was long periods of time where I just wanted to sleep and during the day, and I thought, I was convinced I needed rest. I think that was part of it. So before GDR, I would have said, "Oh, I'm worn out. I haven't gotten enough rest. I'm really a, wide open kind of go 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 kind of person. I don't really rest a lot
Mhm,
anyhow."
mhm,
But then, like Easter, for example, I thought it was kind of funny because I'm in a hot tub at Easter after the Georgia death race on Easter Sunday. Adam, my Jewish friend, Rosie, my Latter Day Saints friend. We got a Methodist friend that just got her spike at GDR, Colleen. Sheila is, I think, independent Baptist or maybe fundamental or who knows, maybe non denominational. But I thought it was kind of funny that we're all together in a hot tub and I'm going to like enjoy my THC in the hot
mhm,
tub because I'm trying to reduce inflammation.
mhm.
And
Uh-huh.
I am secretly thinking I am really sick around all these people. The funny part is none of them got sick except me, which is even more weird. So it wasn't contagious, at least in our tight group. But I
Yeah.
thought about what a weird thing to start Easter Sunday off this year with was such a diverse group of real friends, real people,
Mhm,
and the combination of such was so unusual. And
mhm,
I was beginning that day to start to realize, oh yeah, you're sick, dude. Like you're really sick, and to the point that part of me was like, well, maybe this is something they can't fix.
mhm.
That's kind of what I was getting at is that whatever had happened, and that's where my daughter was even
Right. It sounds like it.
like if this is a parasite that went into your
Mhm,
liver and it sounds that way, like even sadly she was asking for like pictures of my stool and this is
mhm,
getting ridiculous and
mhm,
so I just have to say to you, I don't know if you ever really know what it feels like to be convinced that you're dying.
mhm,
But if you actually feel that way, it's pretty frustrating. I mean,
mhm,
you also have this crazy attitude. Like that Wednesday before I went to the doctor, I
mhm.
was like, I want to go to a honky tonk. I want to go listen to somebody play guitar, and I want to drink beer and eat pizza.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
the reason my friends went with me is because they were worried about me, and
Mhm.
they watched me eat all that food, and they all had. I feel bad for them. They had this look on their face like they were looking at writing an obituary or
Uh,
preparing a eulogy. They weren't
yeah.
having fun, and I was like, if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna go play one more night.
Yeah.
Like, let's go have fun. No, I didn't do anything crazy. I just had a couple
Right.
of beers and a pizza. But
Mhm,
I have to admit that next morning when I woke up, I knew it was time to go to the doctor, and I knew that it was time to hear the news. And I actually thought, to be honest, I thought he was going to give me much worse news. I thought he was going to say,
really.
"Okay, here's what's happening.
Uh-huh.
You're in big trouble."
Yeah.
Now, I do believe this though. A man could get depressed like that, and
Mhm,
if I wanted to, this could have been that, or if a person wanted to, that'd have been the
mhm.
time to check in the hotel and tell everybody you're taking a vacation and you're taking a break, and then I don't think it would take long. You would be dead because you couldn't stay awake. I mean,
Yeah.
that would be the big thing. When you get real dehydrated, you get sleepy. And
Yeah.
then if you're smart, every time you wake up from your naps or whatever,
Mhm,
you got to replace that liquid. That
mhm.
I can tell you this, no one can possibly believe the amount of food I ate during this ordeal. I bet I spent, you're going to think I'm joking. I bet I spent
No.
$35 a day on food.
Did you tell me give me an example of a day. What did you eat in a day?
I had okay, so I would try to eat popsicles, those natural fruit popsicles, the
Mhm,
strawberries, the pineapples, the
mhm,
grapes, the mango, like,
mhm,
and I probably ate I don't know, 60 of them damn things. Like, I mean, we were just buying them like crazy.
Wow.
The body armor drinks, I've probably
Mhm.
drink, I don't know, I've drank, 50 or 100 of them stupid things, the body armor drinks.
Wow.
Um, I drank a lot of water.
Mhm.
I wasn't really taking vitamins because I knew that it was useless. I
Yeah.
mean, it just seems silly.
Nothing. Yeah.
But
Mhm.
I have started taking my vitamins again, and that makes me feel good. I don't feel like I'm starving anymore, which is great. And then I don't feel nauseous all day long every day.
Mhm.
Um, but it seems like I want to answer your question better.
Well,
How did you
what
word your question?
I said, so give me an example of what you ate in a day.
Oh, the example.
Yeah.
So those popsicles would have been something would have been a go-to anytime I felt like I could eat.
Mhm.
Thinking, you have to eat
Uh-huh.
this, like you have to eat what you don't have to chew, maybe. So there's all kind of psychological torment with you
Mhm.
could eat a great popsicle and then vomit a great popsicle, and then you're like, okay, so what do I eat? What can I actually swallow? That's more like liquid to me. I didn't really think I was eating. I thought I was just letting something melt.
Mhm.
so so popsicles a ton. Grits were pretty popular, and believe it or not, I could eat just tons of anything. So, like, I would make chicken and steak
Mhm.
and pasta. I made adult mac and cheese constantly, and it was always delicious. And I would always eat a giant helping of it. I
Mhm.
started thinking protein would help, and I started eating
Mhm.
ribeyes. And I've eaten as many as 3 ribeyes in a day for
Oh, wow.
sure. But
Yeah.
there were several days in a row that I could go to a little place in town called Creek Bottom and walk out with a $35 lunch bill. I mean, because I could
Yeah.
not get the
Full.
food to stay inside of me.
Wow.
so
Wow.
so let's be clear. I was hydrating and I was
Uh-huh.
eating. And for everybody that's like, well, you should have just went to the hospital.
Mhm.
No, they didn't want me to
Yeah.
go to the hospital.
Right.
They
Right.
didn't. That was not the recommendation. Now,
Yeah.
if I had fainted and they called 911, they would have taken me to the hospital. They would have given me fluid and they would have sent me on my merry way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so a typical day honestly was spent eating all day. Like that was kind of the whole point. And then I
So
argued with
your whole
myself
goal
about
became to get food, to get nutrition, try to get nutrition in.
that's all you could do. And I've
Wow.
literally driven to this little place right down the road that had these great little double cheeseburgers and
Mhm.
they're amazing. And I could go buy two of them,
Mhm.
get completely home, have eaten one in the car, eat the other in the dang driveway, and then turn around and crank the car again to go somewhere else and go get some more food.
Wow.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to believe. Like the amount
Yeah.
of food I've been eating has made the people that are around me, their eyes are huge. Like they're like, what is going on? So now I'm not doing that anymore. So now I'm starting to eat normal portions. And I
Okay.
also I'm really looking at this as a huge advantage to have a start over on my body. I mean,
Uh-huh.
I'm getting new guts out of it. That's what everybody agrees.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like
Everything's
the balls of
set.
my feet regrew and they're new
Mhm.
now. I have like baby feet, baby
Yeah.
skin. It just replaces itself. So my gut's probably been replaced.
Yeah.
Um,
So having gone through this, what would you tell yourself if you could go back to the beginning of this whole experience and say, you need to keep this in mind, Kevin, throughout this whole process. You need to keep this in mind. Don't forget this thing.
the doctor said, and he was sitting there wagging his finger at me, and he said, "I'm going to teach you how to save yourself."
Mm,
He said, "But it's up to you."
yeah.
And I was like, "What does that even mean?" And then he told me about bismuth, and I thought he was gonna give me some, and he didn't tell me it was Pepto Bismol before he finally came out with that. But at some point, he was trying to say to me, I'm gonna give you the answer, but
Mhm.
you got to take it every
Yeah.
30 minutes. And he said it sounds crazy, and the bottle says something different. And
Yeah.
he says, I'm telling you what to do. So I think that answer to that question is you have to learn that you want to live more than you want to die, because you actually get a choice.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the stupid part. We sit around every day thinking, well, I could take my own life if I want to, but could you save it if you wanted to? Wow.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool. It's a song I love so much by Chris Cornell, who, passed away by suicide. So a lot of people don't like hearing anything about Chris Cornell. but it's
Mm-hmm.
called, one of my favorite songs is called "The Day I Tried to Live."
Mm.
And so I think about that a little bit, because each day, like, I mean, Paul even came to me one morning and he's like, "Dude, are you just going to lay there and die? Or are you going to do something about it?" He said, "I don't understand." He said, "I know your daughter's telling you what to do, but it apparently is not working." And I was like, ugh. And then when I went to this doctor, I said, I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do as far as I know, but this
Yeah.
whole run its course thing is not working. And
Yeah.
I said, "I think I'm losing." And he said, "You won't lose if you don't give up." And I was like, "Well, what is that
Oh,
supposed to mean?"
yeah. That's a profound statement.
Yeah, so that's why I'm afraid to stop taking Pepto Bismol.
Hmm.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'll stop taking it and everything will be fine, but I'm going to run out, first, like go through those last couple of bottles. But yeah,
Hmm.
I've learned some hard ass lessons, and I'm excited about the future. And I did decide I would rather live than die. Like I did. I mean, not that you may say, "Well, gosh, did you really think about that?" Well, I mean, I don't know. You're pretty miserable after you're starving for several weeks.
Yeah.
And I cannot imagine hungry people, and people that are really hungry, because that's a real special kind of in-depth pain, no pun intended. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
to be hurting from the inside out is
Yeah.
pretty rough shit. And so, but now I'm on the mend, and I'm
Hmm.
eating, and
Hmm.
I'm, going to start working out again. I'm running a little bit, nothing much, doing a
Wow.
little hiking,
Yeah.
mainly trying to stay busy. And it sounds crazy, but that's why I was so excited about this silly little van. I found this crazy van for sale. It's all
Uh-huh.
wheel drive. It's
Uh-huh.
totally Froggy Mountain Adventures worthy, and people can sleep in it or travel in it
Uh-huh.
or build a little kitchen in it or whatever. But
Yeah.
it'll be a part of all the fun things that we do. We are having, shameless plug, a
Yeah. Do it.
the Froggy Mountain on June the 21st, the Froggy Mountain 50 miler and 100 miler. You're more than welcome to come. And we only have 25 spots available. And I think 14 or 15 people have signed up. A lot of people keep saying they're going to sign up, but they haven't. And that's fine. But when the 25 is done, we're done. And it's the toughest 50 miler and the toughest 100 miler in America, according to people that know what they're talking about. Now, yes, I will hear that Ouray is much more difficult. Um, I got you. But when it comes to the level of elevation change,
Hmm.
it's undeniably similar and
Hmm.
undeniably difficult, but it's just a different environment. It's not
What's
Colorado.
what's
It's
the
not Ouray.
elevation change?
49,000 feet of gain.
Okay. All right. What kind of surfaces are you running on?
There is no steps. There is no structure. It is a hill. It is
Uh-huh.
mud and
Oh.
rocks. It's a mountain. So it is soft in a lot of places with
Do the
pine
rocks
bed.
move?
Well, no, no, you can push your foot up on the rocks.
Okay. That's good.
It's not cobblestone or whatever.
Yeah.
But the point is you're on your toes.
Hmm.
You're not on like steps.
Yeah.
So most people use poles. They stay on their calves and on their toes pretty much the whole time.
Yeah.
It's a 420-foot climb with two ups and then a 420 down. So it's 840 feet of change per mile. Now,
Gosh.
what's great is you can come by the aid station every mile because it's right there at the start line. You
Oh,
can
that's cool.
say, "I want 3 bites of food and then I want to keep going."
Hmm.
No problem. That's
Yeah.
the beauty of it, is you don't have to carry anything. Most people
Okay.
carry their poles,
Uh-huh.
and they love having like a charger nearby to charge their phone or carry their stuff and lay stuff down and be able to pick it up. They can have a tent on the course, right
Hmm.
by the course. And so it's really way much more fun than you would imagine. We cook like crazy and have a
Where can
lot of
they find
fun.
that?
Where is that?
Yeah, where can they find that if they want to sign up for that, or do you have
They
like a
go to
website?
Ultra sign up, and they
Oh,
click on events and look for Froggy. It's the only race called Froggy. Froggy Mountain Adventures, Froggy Mountain 100, and it is June 21st.
June 21st. Okay, so you can go to Ultra sign up, y'all, to go find that. It is the Froggy Mountain 50 and 100 miler.
That's right. We don't
Okay.
expect people to do it because you have to be sort of crazy, but when you show up, we know who you are.
Ultra runners are crazy.
We are.
Yeah,
By the way,
absolutely.
I'm sorry for not asking you a million questions. Are you the
Well,
interviewer? I mean,
that's
next time,
not
can
what
I
this
interview
is
you?
about. Yeah. Yeah. I asked the question.
But if I look skinny, it's because of, my illness. But we're coming
Yeah.
back.
Okay.
I'm gonna get fat again. You wait and see.
Well, we hope so. We want to see that. We want to
I
see
will.
that.
I'll
Yeah.
let you guys know when I get back to like 205 or something like that.
You better. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. This has been interesting. I had no idea all that was going on. I think the last time I communicated with you, I think I sent a text on Easter, I think wishing you a happy Easter or something.
You did.
And then I try to go in and heart whenever I'm on social media. I've been a little bit absent from social media though for the past couple of weeks. So it's like, wow, there was a lot going on there, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just a short period of time too. It
Yeah.
all started when I went to Florida, and it just never ended. It just got wild.
You probably don't like Florida now.
Well, no, I love Florida. I'm going back June the 1st. Ocean to Lakes is a
Oh, where's that?
100K.
Where's that
Um,
one?
well, I guess Ocean to Lakes. So I think that means the down by the Panhandle, maybe. Not the
Oh, okay.
Panhandle. Not the
Yeah. I
Panhandle.
was about
I'll
to say,
find out. I'll,
okay,
I'll
yeah,
send you
yeah.
a link to it, but I'm not running it. I'm crewing Brandon, the nurse, the CRNA.
Oh,
Who
that's
is a
cool.
he's a great guy.
Yeah.
But Brandon is going. I'm going to serve him because he served me. Um,
Mm.
and you have a video playing behind you now. It looked like you were
Oh,
traveling through a desert or something all of a sudden.
yeah. I put on just like landscapes behind me of different
But it,
places.
sometimes it changes and it actually looked like you were like traveling.
Yeah, it's just kind of, yeah, we got a beach there now. Like,
So he's like, now you're flying over the beach. Like, pretty
I
cool.
do lots of drone shots. Yeah.
I got nothing but this boring old van. This
No,
boring old
that's
Toyota.
hey, there's a story there.
Truth.
And I'm sure we'll hear about it next time. But yeah,
I
Kevin,
hope
thank
there
you.
is the next time.
Yeah, well, you got to. This is like a sequel now, but
But
thank
see,
you.
now I got a new chapter for my book. Think about it. If I'd have finished my book, I wouldn't be able to add all this craziness in there. So.
No, you've got to add that as a chapter. Absolutely. And yeah, we got to hear about updates on that too. So yeah,
And maybe
Kevin,
we can save some lives with Pepto-Bismol.
yeah, that's worth it. That's worth it. Getting the word out. Yep. Well, I'm so glad you are feeling a little bit better on the mend, at least running a little bit. You're putting more weight on, so that's really good. I'm glad that things are going uphill for you, and you got your new van, and you've got your event coming up. Let's see, where did that go? There you go. So we'll have to check in with you again
I knew
and get
that
an
for you.
update.
See, look at there. That's that keyboard warrior happening right there.
Yeah.
Good job.
And
Thank you for doing that.
oh yeah, anytime, man. Yeah, just send us stuff and we're happy to share the love. So yeah, y'all can find him on Instagram at SilveyMan. And so send him out a message and say, glad you're feeling better at least. And yeah, follow his wild and crazy life.
Steve Martin's a favorite, I have to say.
He is, oh man, he was great. Who else did that with him? It was two guys. I forgot the other guy's name. But yeah. Oh, Dan Aykroyd. It was Dan Aykroyd. Yeah, that's who it was. Right. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, funny. Cool. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for being here with us today. Go eat some food now that you can get some nutrition in. And we look forward to hearing from you again. Thank you for your time. So glad you're feeling better. And thank you for the adventurous story.
Thank you. I'll try to top it next time. I don't know if we can, but I'll try.
Not too much. Don't try. Don't try.
Thank you again. You take care.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Y'all have a great one. Bye.